An unboxing today of D&D Adventure Begins, a cooperative board game, Dungeons and Dragons. It's a fun entry to the world of D&D. This is the board game. It's for 10 and up, 2 to 4 players. Now, the adventure begins. It is the perfect adventure for new heroes, and you are the new heroes. Adventure Begins is a cooperative fantasy board game for the whole family, set in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. Defeat monsters, collect treasure, be a hero, a new adventure every time you play. And right now there's choosing heroes inside, and there's 4 customizable heroes, which I'll talk about later. There's the gold coins. And I like the box art. Even though it's simple, it kind of illustrates what's the content inside, and I like it that it lays it out. A lot of games just splurge everything in there and it's like, oh, let me see. But this is very nice, neat, and it lays it out everything. It shows you that the enemies that you may fight, the bosses, and there's 4 bosses in this game. And again, there's tiles. There's only 4 tiles, and I'll illustrate how you set it up. So it's a mini kind of review at the same time unboxing. And this is the placeholder cards for all the content of the cards, of the enemies, and also scenarios. And there's 4 types for each tile, different stack of cards representing what possibly can happen walking into those tiles. And then there's the items, as obviously, and there's also the backpacks, which just give you that Dungeons and Dragons kind of feel of playing out your scenario, like how did you beat the enemy and how did you go about, finishing that battle. Now, let's open it up. Let's see what the contents are. I hope you're excited as I am. All right, things kind of mixed around there, but I'll illustrate everything one by one. So this is the manual, okay? And it's about 15 pages, I believe. Yeah, it's 15 pages. So again, anybody that's played D&D board games, and when I talk about D&D board games, I'm talking about something like Castle of Ravenloft, Wrath of Osharlon, Legend of Driss, Temple of Elemental Evil, and there's another one that came after it, and also the Mad Mage. Again, they did an amazing job. They keep it the simplistic form, but yet it has its own level of complexity, character building, character customization. Again, most of these board games are always you can level up only to level 2, so which is kind of discouraging. Even though this is an entry kind of game, having an expansion for this, I doubt it. It will be amazing if they did, because it's a really intriguing, simplistic form of the game, but yet he has his own complexity, which I'll get into, which makes it kind of interesting and cute, be it family-wise when you play it. It's nice to see how everybody plays it out. Now, again, as always, they lay it out very clear. Their rule books are always more kind of clear and concise to many of the rule books that I've read, and you can't go wrong in understanding the game. Again, the game itself, like I said, is simple in comparison to many. It's very neatly done. And again, here the rule book. And if you're going to play any of the villains, it kind of illustrates what's the storyline for each villain, and it tells you out pretty much what's your purpose there. And obviously, it's beat the big bad villain. And here it kind of illustrates you how to set up the board, and it's not that difficult. It's very straightforward. Here's the villain, the main boss villain, and here he is set up, gatekeepers to kind of get to him and beat him. And here's the character setup, character customization. And again, each character has their male and female side, and it has different combat tiles. So you can decide, do you want to be the one who's fight with burning hands or magic missiles, or create a firestorm, etc. And you got the ability right below it, which is the illusionist. Again, you can attack, with any one of those, but again, it's whichever battle or which way you want to play out. And there's the personality tile, which is kind of cute and amazing. It kind of says what's your personality, obviously, and you kind of play it out as you clever, playful, and impatient. And it plays out in the storyline as you play the game. Certain cards kind of play out toward that values. And you got a one-time ability that you can use within a tile, and this is a tile. And again, the combat system, in the map tile is very straightforward. Is where you could decide to go straight for the gatekeeper, or you can go and do detours and fight enemies, like if you're group or solo, and usually you would want your group to join you, or unless, others will wait for you on the path, as they cannot move forward without you. So at the same time, there's this, like I said, there's the card setup that you pretty much lay out the cards and illustrate it to the group. There is a dungeon master. The dungeon master is just a fluff. In a sense, what I mean by that is that there's still a cooperative board game. The game plays itself, but the dungeon master kind of enhances the story and makes it more intriguing and more fun to play with the group. Okay? And again, the monster cards. The one thing that I loved about this, and it's amazing, a lot of games usually, as much as they come with dice, they're usually set for one player. In this one, they gave every player their colored dice so they can play and roll for themselves, which is very nice. Dice are cheap. Let us enjoy. And last thing I want is throwing dice around, unless they're throwing it at the enemy. And now there's also the clip, for the enemy or the bosses to use, and you can easily see what level you are at and at what point you damaged him. Again, there's different abilities and different combats, so it's important to note that you could choose which weapon you're going to attack, and based on that, you roll the dice. Anybody that's played D&D knows that you roll the dice, so any hit value or above it, you pretty much hit the target, and you'll do that damage. Now again, this is pretty much a creative attack that's usually based on the class type, and you just have to D&D style play it, and you roll the dice. There's chances that you miss more, but at the same time, if you do roll properly and you do the damage, like you roll 17 and above, which is usually a slim chance, but if you do that, you manage to do a damage and you stun the enemy. And stun, what happens is the enemy does not retaliate against you. So there's a pro and con in that sense, okay? And obviously, like any D&D game, you roll a 20, you do an extra damage, okay? So again, the way it works is every hero has a chance to attack the enemy, and the enemy counters every hero. The only time, or unless you have special item or ability, the enemy always attacks you back, unless it's stunned. Okay? So the rewards are usually items or gold. Okay? And the items are usually one-time use. So you use them in battle, and you could use them again in the next battle. Or if, let's say you have 4 items, you cannot use all 4 items in that same turn of yours, but you could use all 4 in the same battle. So what that means is you attack, use an item, and you obviously attack, and then you wait for your next turn round. If the enemy is not defeated, use another item and attack, and hopefully defeat the enemy, and pretty much move on from there. Leveling up in this game is you got to pay by gold. You got, I believe it's 5 gold. When you level up to level 2, you heal fully. So if you're damaged at all, you can heal that way. There's many ways that you can heal in this game, and that I'll get into sometime later. And again, here is the diagram of what each picture pretty much means in the game. And this is the types, the meaning. This on the bottom right here, if you see, is, like if I could show you a little bit better, that's Neverwinter Wood, Neverwinter, Gotlegrim, and Mount Hotnow, sorry, is all the locations that you may go into, and there's the cards in there. And the cards, there's 2 types usually. There's scenario cards or encounter cards. So encounter, you're obviously fighting a monsters, and each monster is kind of different. And scenarios are usually played out D&D scenarios, and based on the Dungeon Master's reaction, they will choose what is the best choice, and moving forward. Now, the stop reading part usually appears in some cards, and what that means is usually you wait for everybody's decision, and based on that, you react on their decision, and then certain things happen. All right? And this, on the board, I'll explain more what occurs. And this is the characters and their races. So, again, like any D&D, there's always an elf, there's always a dwarf, and recently, the dragonborns and humans and the classes. Well, anybody that's played great games from D&D or any video games or fantasy games knows the bards and fighters and rogues and sorcerers. So really there's no, a bard is pretty much plays the ranger in this class. So let's move forward to the next things. So let's look at the tiles first, all right? So the tiles in the box that you will find there's 4 tiles. This is Mount Hotnow, and you can see it's like a lava kind of setup, all right? That's one tile. And let me elaborate here about the tiles. Now you could choose from your group always starts from here, and the gatekeeper is always here. So you're pretty much, what could occur is you could choose to go into a monster pathway, and you can encounter a monster. Or you could choose to decide to go straight and just face off a scenario where there's or you face off actually the next card, and it could be a monster or a scenario. But usually always a monster here. Here it's 50-50. And the same thing here. Again, the setup is kind of thing is the same, but you can instead, when you start here, you can go here to the monster, or you could choose to go straight, etc. If some of your members, your teammates decide to move straight and you decide to go fight a monster, they have to wait for you here before they can move forward. So what will happen is you move here, you have to fight a monster, and after you fight a monster, then you can go and meet up with your group, who then will face off possibly a scenario or an encounter. So again, so you can just split the group and decide on what occurs, but in the end, everybody has to wait before moving forward in the map, or tile, I should say. So again, this is Gauntlegrin. I'm sorry if I butchered the name. And this is Neverwinter. If nobody has ever heard of Neverwinter, Sword Coast, well, the time you picked up a good novel and great stories, and get that kid in you back, because they're great stories, great tales, and everybody's heard of Baldur's Gate, and everybody's heard of Neverwinter Nights game. You should check it out if you have the chance. Again, here is the same tile scenario setup, so you can go from here, you could decide to go there, or you could move forward every time. Here's always, there's a gatekeeper, or possibly the main villain, depending on the villain that you choose, or the big boss, as you want to call it, to face off. So I'll explain that soon. Now, here, you know what? As we talked about big bosses, let's talk about big bosses. So on the big bosses, there's the Kraken. And again, it shows which tile it goes to and which tiles it appears. So in this case, if you look at the Kraken, and you could see right here on this emblem, this picture, then it will match this right here, this tile. So the Kraken would be here, and it would be located and placed right here on the gatekeeper. So we're going to get that into the playthrough, and you'll get a better understanding of that. But this is the Kraken. And this is, I'm not going to show every one, but this is just to show, this is the health track for the big boss. And this is the roll dice. If you roll a 1 and 2, you pretty much miss. And you roll a 3 to 5, this is what you do. A 6 to 9, 10. And if you defeat him, this is what you read on as a story, and which makes it very, very D&D, makes it very family-oriented or group story-oriented and fun to play. You got the Orn, the fire giant. You got Death Sleep, the green dragon. And you can't be D&D if you don't have Felbris, the beholder. All right, so that is your villains, or big bosses, I should say. Now, let's go to the other, enemies and villains, I should say. So there is also, each tile comes with their own stack of cards, which illustrate for their scenarios or the big encounters that you may face in that map for monsters. So this, when it shows the blue image on the top, it's usually a scenario. So let's check this one. It's Hot Pockets. There's pools of lava on the floor. All players roll. Players with the lowest roll has to go through first and burn their feet. -1 to their health. Okay? So pretty much, well, you know what's happening. And that's going to be on the tile, again, based on the imagery, only on that tile. So this is the cards for all. There's 24 cards for each tile. So that's plays for the lava kind of scenario tile. And then there's another tile here. Let's go quickly. And there's this tile, right? And this one, proceed with caution. All right? And this scenario plays different. Proceed with caution. You come to a room with a hippogriff standing guard over his treasure. Figure out how to distract so you can loot their stash. That stash. Each player comes up with a plan, then all players roll for individual outcomes. So pretty much, you get them to say a story, you laugh about it, you roll a dice, and see the outcome. Well, pretty much you roll 1 to 10, you know you're going to lose 1 health. You roll anything 11 or greater, you get $1. Or I should say 1 gold coin. All right? Moving right along. And the names are kind of funny humor, like Rockabye Vampy, if you know Rockabye Baby, you know, the song. Again, there's Ice Ice Baby. You should know the song that I'm thinking of. Doom, To the Death. Again, so all this play. And now let me show you an encounter in that same scenario. So that's one of the 24 cards. They could be possibly an encounter. This one, Black Pudding. So let's see what's the encounter here. For an encounter, you got your health track, just like a big boss. And it tells you a little story about it. It sounds like it should be food, but if you touch it, it dissolves your bones. Oh gosh, that's not good. So it says resistance to weapons, -5 to all rolls, weapon attacks. So, and it pretty much says what the results of your rolls, right? So 1 to 2, same thing as the other one. And if you defeat it, right here, if you notice, if you defeat it, you get 1 gold and an item. And that's each player does. Okay, so it's not only the person who did the death blow, but pretty much everybody in that group. Okay, so there's more cards for the other tiles, right? So again, just to glance here, damsel distress signal. Okay, so here it's another, like you remember the stop hand that I told you? So pretty much a princess stumbles out of the wood and begs you to help her find her lost companion. What do? Time for a search party? A. B. You really don't have time for this. You have monsters to fight. So if you chose A to do a search party, you pretty much all lose gold. I'm not going to read what it says to spoil, but pretty much B, if you decide you don't have time for this, you pretty much lose 1 health. So I guess you have to choose the lesser evil, I guess, the lesser damage, whatever it is for you. Follow the leader. Witch or wicked. You know, again, these are all cards for each tile, and there's 24 for each one. And there's scenarios and there's encounters. And as you can see here, like let's say there's the Banshee, that's her health and what she does, etc. Moving right along, there's the items. And there's item cards, and I believe there's 8. Oh no, there's 12, sorry. There should be 12. And item cards are pretty much straightforward. They're one-time use, and it pretty much says that at the bottom of the card, you know, after you use, flip the card until you have moved to the next location, okay? 1 swig, and not only do you feel unstoppable, you pretty much are. This does 1 damage, or gives you 1 health. Okay, so it's one or the other. Okay, so you have to choose which it is. And the reason why, how you know that is different, right? Like, look, this one does +2 only damage. So, or this one does 1 damage or 1 health. Okay, or actually it could do both. I'll confirm that in the playthrough. But in the end, it does 1 or the other, or both. Oh, before I forget, there's also the backpacks. You can't be D&D without backpacks. And the backpack cards are pretty much just story oriented. And like this one is a scholar's backpack, and you could choose which backpack you want. So whenever you see this on an adventure card, use this card to help you come up with plans. So basically use this card and say, oh, I used my pile of maps to figure out how to get to this location. You know, it's story oriented and to better kind of illustrate of how things came about, you know, or I used a book of fire monsters to defeat, you know, the fire boss, etc. You know, this is very intriguing and very nicely laid out. Now, like I said, I also love this very, very much, and that is the 4 dices. You know, you can't, I mean, I played a lot of games and they usually give you one dice, and that actually, you know, not to bash him, but if you play Castle or Ravenloft, deviating the topic, and you played all the other D&D board games, they usually give you one dice, you know, and I don't get that. They give you 50 miniatures, they give you so many tiles, they give you everything but one dice. So it's really great to see this. Now, the gold coins are the gold coins. And the gold coins are pretty much used to level up, to heal, to buy items. You need 3 gold to buy an item. All right. And these are the character placeholders. So you'll take the characters kind of choosing tile cards and you place them in there in the slots like this, and they kind of hold. I'm going to illustrate how to set up a cards. They all start with level health of 10 health. And you go down the tracker, you can never have more than 10 health. So, and you pretty much go all the way down. And if you die, you can revive yourself automatically if you give up all your gold, or your friends give you gold, because it's a team. I played a lot of the games of D&D and board games, I'm sure you know, and they say you're playing cooperatively, but you can't share your gold. It's like, well, we're a team. I need it. I'll ask my buddy. It just makes sense. So either ways, in this scenario, they kind of say that all your buddies can give you the gold, and they got to give you at least a gold. Any gold will get you back your health if you die, and you get half health. You start with 5 health. And as you can see, there's 4 of them, right, for the 4 characters. All right. This is pretty much set up for the whole enemy encounter or the villain itself. And you need this. And you will have, let's say, you know, this card's placed inside right here, in the slots right here, okay? And every time you go to a location, like I said, every spot on the tile, you'll pick up a card and you react to it. And if it's an encounter, you just use this to put on the health meter and to see where the damage goes. And you always use this dice, the 10-sided die, to dice for the villains or the big boss or the enemies encounters. And this is just used nicely so you can put the card like this, read what it says to everybody, and while everybody, as you read it, listens to the whole story and looks at the picture. All right? So it's beautifully, beautifully done. And at the same time, this is for the big boss villain. This is the holder. And you pretty much take this, and for the Kraken, release the Kraken. And you pretty much put this like this, and you put it on the tile, and you would put it, as you will see when we do the playthrough, where exactly you put it. Now, the next and final thing to explain what's in the box is each card's, you know, each class's abilities. You get for each one 4, and you get twice the amount. So that means for the character itself, okay, you will get the male side, Lucan Silverfawn, Elf Bard, okay? Or you're going to get the female side, Tia Silverfrond, all right? The Elf Bard, you know? And then you get to choose 2 personalities, right? You can be the Scholar or the Rebel. And this is the traits, character traits. And they come up in the scenario cards or maybe the encounters too. Again, we'll have to do playthroughs and we'll see. And this is a one-time ability within a game board. Unlike items which you can use on every move, on every spot, this ability is only within 1 tile. So this is considered the whole game board tile. So you can only use that special ability once within that tile. All right? And it could be or the Seeker or the Peacekeeper. All right? And this is, again, 2 level 1s and level 2 cards, which pretty much to show, you know, which weaponry you want to use and which abilities you want to use, right? And the abilities here, you know, the special abilities named as they are, natural disaster or theatrical distraction, are, you know, you have to play out like, you know, D&D, you say the story out. Or you're going to just use simply your weapon and roll and see what it gets. Or you theatrically throw your dice and take a big chance because as you can see, 1 to 10, you pretty much are going to miss. But if you manage to do an incredible roll, well, you can pretty much, 17 and more, you could pretty much stun the enemy here. All right? And on level 2, obviously things change with your weaponry and obviously the damage, and that shows itself right here. All right, so each one has their own, right? So this one, there's a mix up here. So let's show you that. So this is the Red Dragonborn Rogue, Corin Nemonis, the female side. And this is Patron Nemonis, the Red Dragonborn Rogue, male. Now, you can be an outlaw, okay? Or you can be a champion. Or you can be the bandit. Or you can be the wanderer. And again, here's level 2, but here's level 1 abilities or class fighting weapons and what stats and damage they do. They pretty much are all similar somewhat, give or take. From what I've seen, they're all similar. So there's nothing wowee there other than you being theatrical on how you go about the damage. The only difference I see is in the personality and the weapon name. Okay, so this is, sorry for the mix-up here, quickly. And this is the next character, which is Kaya Astoria, Human Sorcerer, or Salazar Astorio, Human Sorcerer. You could be the healer, right? You could be the healer, or you could be the tornado. And you could be the sage, or you can be the trickster. And again, level 2 or level 1 fighting abilities. And it kind of says there, it's all the same roles, all the same results. It's just how you want to play it out. I'm throwing a magic missile, and I have to roll 12 or greater, and they do 2 damage. Or I might do illusionist. All right. And here is the fighter dwarf. One can never have a D&D group without a dwarf. You got Riss Strongheart. She is the dwarf fighter. Or you can have Tak, the Strongheart, the dwarf fighter. And you could be, well, the fixer. Huh. I wonder why you call the fixer. Or you could be the enforcer. You could be the genius. A genius fighter. I have to run into one. And you could be the gambler. And level 2 and 1 cards. Level 1 cards and level 2. Again, they don't much say anything in different stats. The results are always the same. And again, this is all that it is. This is D&D Adventure Begins. It is to immerse you into this beautiful world of fantasy and companionship, camaraderie, and cooperative. And this game, we'll see if it does it. I've done several playthroughs, and I will do another playthrough video for everyone just to see how it plays. I hope you like this unboxing. If there's any comments or questions, let me know. Please subscribe, and I look forward to your opinion. Thank you.